Hey, good evening, guys. Tonight I'm going to talk to you a little about your uniform and a useful skill you need as a scout, both as a cub and especially as an older scout. And some of you, as you get into adulthood, are going to need it too. So check back with me here in just a minute. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and watch my other videos. It's Cub Master Ben. Tonight I want to talk to you about sewing. We're going to talk about, I had a button pop off of my top, so we're going to show you that here in a second, how to sew that back on. And we're going to talk about a couple of tools here that I have in my sewing kit. It makes sewing for me just a little bit easier. They're good things for you to have, and awesome things for you to use in your sewing kit. So first off, I'll show you my big sewing kit, right? This is my sewing box as a whole. This is actually an extra piece to go with my sewing machine, and it's got, a tape measure and some other things in there, some safety pins, that sort of thing. But the things I really want to talk to you guys about are the big important things for me for what I'm going to do tonight with this shirt is thread. I've got 12 or 15 colors of thread here, so I just picked one close to my shirt color. I've got needles, lots of needles, different sizes, made for different things, different strengths. The eye on the top of the needle and the tip are all different on them, right? I have my scissors, of course, because I got to cut my string, right? I have my handy dandy thimble, which you'll hear about here in a second, and my thread puller, which you'll also hear about here in a second. So let's get started, guys. I don't know the actual name for this. My grandma used to call it a seam puller or a thread puller. And so since our buttons are sewn on, right, we're going to just take this thread puller, we're going to stick it underneath our strings here that are holding our button, what's left of our button in place, right? And as we pull it through, it cuts them, right? And so you can either do this from the bottom or the top of the button. In this case, I'm doing it just from the broken side, right? So my button's off, and I'm left with it looking like this, right? So I'm left with that on the front, and that's what it looks like on the back side. Okay, so I'm just gonna pull that thread out, because now that it's all cut, we're just gonna pull all of that out. All right, so now I'm gonna come down here, and again, I've got two buttons. So you'll notice if you look at your shirt, you actually have two different size buttons. You've got the ones on the seams, or along the middle of it, that are one size, and then on the pockets, you'll notice that they're a little bit bigger, right? And so we're just gonna pull that smaller one off using the same method, almost. So I'm gonna isolate my button here, right? And I'm gonna take my seam puller, and it's sharp, so I'm gonna wiggle it, and it's got a nice point on it, so I'm gonna wiggle it under the button, right? And just keep wiggling it until I get all those strings cut, and I can pull this button all the way off. There we go. That's almost done. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's why I missed the piece. All right, so we've got that done. All right, we're gonna get our button off here, and then we're gonna sew it on. So there's my button, and again, I'm just gonna remove these excess strings that are down here and get them out of the way, right? So that one gets something that doesn't look so pretty off your shirt, and two, it was a useful place, because now you know kind of how your button looked, or how it should look once it's sewn on, right? So you don't have to use the same color thread. I am going to. I've got my needle pre-prepared here. Uh-oh, my needle ran away. I've got my needle pre-prepared with my string on it. Lots of issues sometimes. All right, anyway, so I picked a tan thread so you guys can kind of see the thread. So I've got a larger spools and smaller spools. Again, I have a sewing machine. I like to sew, so that's a good one. All right, guys, so we're going to stitch this button on. I'm just using a thread that I thought matched the uniform color pretty well, that tan color. All right, and I just measured out a small piece of string. Now, the way you measure it, you can be real exact about it. I prefer to just kind of guess and go, hey, this looks like enough, because I can always get a little more if I need it, and if I have too much, I can always, trim it down. Sorry, guys, it's hot. All right, so I got my thread, so I'm going to thread my string through the eye of my needle here. If we can get this to focus, you'll see it. There's an opening in the top of your needle. And it's called the eye of the needle, and this is the tip of your needle. Obviously, it's sharp, right? So you're going to thread it through. You're going to pull your thread back until the ends are together, all right? And then I like my fingers, so I have a little bit of extra grip, okay? You're just going to take your thread, you're just going to wrap it around your finger, you're going to leave that tail, okay? And then I just like to twist the two pieces together so that it forms my knot. And it's not always that easy. All right, And so sometimes you end up with a little loop, sometimes you don't. All right, so then we've got our button. And the nice thing about these shirts is you can see where your button was. So I'm gonna place my button on there, and I'm gonna grab my needle. And I'm also gonna grab my thimble so I don't poke myself, right? And you kind of see thimbles. You'll see them on some folks, they put them on their finger. My grandma always told me, hey, put it on your first finger or your thumb, right? And what the thimble does is it's a backing on the other side of your material so you don't poke your finger, right? And you know when you're all the way through. That's how I was taught to use one. So the first thing I'm going to do here, though, is I'm going to put my anchor in. So I found the holes on my uniform. So I'm going to put my needle through and pull it through. And I'm going to pull it till it stops, right? And then we're just going to go ahead and throw this button on. So we've got the button threaded onto our string. Right, and I'm going to take it all the way up, right, and we're just going to sew this on real quick. So, all right, guys, so I'm going to throw this button on, right, and the way I'm going to do that is I came up through my material, okay, and I threaded my button onto my string, and then I put it directly across my button, right, into the hole directly across the way, pulled it back through, and then you just kind of guess where the other one is. I wasn't exact, right, so I've thrown a couple good stitches in, so what I'm going to do here is you'll see through the bottom, right? I'll bring it up through the hole, up and through. I'm going to put it through the hole across the way, so I'm going to come across over here, put through that one, okay? And then I'm going to look on the back here and find where the perpendicular or the other set of holes is on my button. And I'm going to push that up through there, right? Got it through. And then I'm going to cross it back over, right? And I've done this about, I'd say probably 5 or 6 times, and it's given it a nice, decent anchor for that button to stay in place, right? So I finished that up. So the way I like to tie is then I'm going to take my needle, and I'm going to find part of the stitching, and I'm going to thread it through there. Right, and I'm going to pull it through so I got this little loop. I'm going to feed my needle through my loop, and then I'm just going to pull it tight. And it'll snug an overhand knot right there. And then I'm going to do it again. So I end up giving myself a square knot. And then I'm going to do that a couple more times. And essentially what this does is this ends up giving me a nice tightened down knot so that my stitching doesn't just come undone while I'm walking around, right? So I got this all done. Grab my handy trusty scissors and I'm going to cut it, no, not too far above the knot, right? Just enough so it's out of the way. And there we go. We got our button sewn back on our shirt. So hey guys, you can also use these skills to stitch up pants. If you're on a camp out and something happens and your pants tear, you can use them to fix a patch, maybe tack it back on for a couple days so you can get home. Or maybe fix that favorite stuffed animal of yours that has a hole in its arm from being played with and loved on a lot. So yeah, show me your skills. Remember to like, remember to subscribe, watch the channel. And from Cub Master Ben to you guys.